Hello, hello, bonsoir, and welcome to Se Nou. This is us. Today we are here to celebrate Dominica's Creole language, Creole heritage, and Creole culture. I am Simone, and joining me today is three heavyweights in the world of Creole music, Mr. Gordon Henderson, Miss Mikhail Henderson, and Mr. Gregory Rabes. So, if you have ever thought of being more fluent in the Creole language, or if you are thinking, hey, I can take on any one of these so-called giants with my skills of my level of expertise, then this is the program for you. So welcome, welcome. So today we are speaking and promoting our Creole language. I will be your moderator, Simone, so I will be the timekeeper. And again, we will introduce ourselves separately and then we will get right into the program. So again, my name is Simone. I am the author of Push Past 10, and I am the creator, host, and producer of Untapped Potential on TDN Radio. And if you would like to learn more about me, you can visit my page at pushpast10.com. But most importantly, I am Dominican to the bone. So as we know, the theme for this year's Independence is embracing new opportunities. So when I saw Mr. Gordon Henderson posting lessons on Facebook, I thought, why not embrace this as a new opportunity? So I reached out to him and he graciously accepted to be our teacher for some Creole lessons. And in very quick time, he invited Mr. Gregory Rabes and Miss Mikhail Henderson to join us. So thank you, Gordon. Thank you for sparking the idea. And now we will jump right in. So Anwale, let's go. So we will start by having everyone introduce themselves, starting with a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Gordon Henderson.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for calling us heavyweights. I used to be a boxer in my young days, so I know that heavyweights punch. They do punch. But thanks a lot for organizing something like that. You introduced me as a teacher. I consider myself more as a sharer. And this evening, what I will try to do is combine some of the experiences I've had with this Creole language, because, you know, unlike, not even unlike, just like English or Spanish, there are many variations in that language. You know, American English is not the same as Canadian, it's not the same as British, Australian, and our Creole has many variations. Even in Dominica, only recently I realized that in Grand Bay, the word I or me, which is the same word, is mon. I always thought that it was moi. So I have a few little notes that I would like to discuss, hear what people have to say, and in terms of introduction, I've been singing for a very long time.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. Next.
Yes, so Mikhail, you can go.
All right, wow, that's such tough shoes to fill, man, right after. Hello, my name is Mikhail Henderson, a singer-songwriter from the island of Dominica and also proud Ghanaian. and a promoter of the Creole language. Thrilled to have been invited to participate in this evening's session. I'm one of the people who believe that the Creole language is one of the most beautiful, expressive languages that exist. Actually, I write quite frequently in Creole on my on my Facebook page, and it's always fun to actually watch Facebook try and translate what it is that I'm trying to say.
Excellent, excellent.
It's such fun. But yes, I'm happy to be here and honored to be called a heavyweight. So I think that's the first time I've ever been called a heavyweight in my life. I was in another life, but honored to be among such distinguished guests this evening.
Excellent, excellent. And Mr. Gregory Rabes?
Yeah, Gregory Rabes, musician. Like it appears that all of us are musicians, interestingly.
Except me.
Program. And basically, yeah, I'm a musician, also a Creolist. I've been involved in the Creole movement at the level of the Community Poetic Creole CEC since 1980-81. And so I have been directly involved in the Creole activities, movement taking place in Dominica over the last 3 or more decades. I used to work with the cultural division for the past 10 years. I'm retired now. So that's my claim to fame, very much involved in the culture. Non, moi c'est Gregory Rabes pour les gens qui suivent le programme là, émission. Et puis bon, moi j'ai travaillé depuis longtemps dans le mouvement créole là, depuis l'année 80. Et moi j'étais un membre fondateur du comité poétique créole Dominique. Et pendant ces 3 et plus d'années, moi impliqué dans l'autre différentes actions pour développer langue et culture créole à Dominica. Par ça, moi, c'est musicien, poète créole et en dans ce sens, vous pouvez dire moi en toutes sortes. Merci en pile, merci en shy, merci en low. It means thank you very much. Merci en pile, merci en shy, merci en low. That's again, it means the same thing. If you have to talk about mem bite, mem bagay, in French Guyana, they say mem bet. So we can say mem bite, mem bagay, mem bet, mem shoy, mem shows. It all means the same thing.
So at this point, I'm ready to run away because I don't think I can match Gregory on the Creole level.
Papa
So while we're on Gregory, can you go ahead and just give us a little bit of the history of Creole in Dominica?
Ok, bon, l'histoire créole en Dominique, moi qui démêlé en créole et puis anglais.
Yeah,
Oui.
yeah.
L'histoire créole Dominique, ça a légis, bon, ça fait peut-être 4 ou 5 siècles, quoi. The Creole, history of Creole in Dominica goes back a couple centuries, back into the, you know, when the Europeans came in here, especially the French and the English, the Brits. When Columbus came to this spot, he just passed by. He tried to land in Dominica, but the Kalinagos fling a couple arrows, and then he did not actually step foot in Dominica. Having said that, the French and the British, a couple centuries, well, about 2 centuries, they hear it had a CO somewhere in a place they call the Caribbean. So the man pull up and they decide I'm that too. So the French and the Brits found themselves in the area. They pull up, as we say in local parlance, and then they settled in the region. And of course, they brought in things like sugarcane and horses and even dogs too. And they decided to settle these islands. In the process, waged a war of genocide among the Amerindian people, the Kalinago, who occupied that Eastern Caribbean in particular. And because the Kalinago refused to be like slaves or work, they were not accustomed to that kind of work. So they brought in Africans from Africa and began in the process of establishing what they call plantation slavery and plantation society. A new form of communication had to be developed because you know, you had Africans from different regions of Africa, particularly West Africa, all speaking different types of languages. And then you had the French, because the French were the first to really effectively colonize Dominica. They, and of course, they prohibited the Africans from speaking the various languages that they had. So Creole was developed as a sort of a medium ground, and then over, let us say, maybe about 50 years or so, in that process, it developed as a pidgin, but it became to be quite settled as a language. So within 100 years, the main, as we might call, the French colonies in the Caribbean, namely Haiti, Dominica, Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, even Grenada and Trinidad, all spoke and developed the French Creole as we know it. So that is how it came about. En Creole, bref, bon, les CB qui a venu en région, bon, yo jeune c'est Kalinagoa, et c'est Kalinagoa parti d'accord pour mettre Creole à esclavage. So, finalement, yo mené moun l'autre Afrique, et puis yo commencé à créer une société plantation, une société, un système esclavage en Caraïbes pour planter bitin comme sic et puis tabac, non, sic, café et puis cacao. Et puis, il y a besoin en langue pour communiquer parce que c'est africain, il peut parler plusieurs langues. Bon, c'est bien qu'il a tenu français, et puis il tenu des Kalinago, il tenu propre langage, Kalinago. Et puis, effectivement, pendant 50 années, 100 années comme ça, finalement, en langue commune développée à base de français, et puis africain, et puis Kalinago aussi. Et puis, nous, qui ça, Creole. So that's in Creole, the brief thing. And then when it evolved over the centuries, past slavery and beyond, in Dominica, for example, up until the 1950s, when I was born in that period there, growing up as a little boy, everyone spoke Creole. In many instances where I grew up in the Kalinago territory area, the majority of speakers were actually monolingual Creole speakers. Si on Creole de parler, pas de parler anglais. Si on rien qui Creole de parler. So monolingual Creole speakers. Now, of course, with the transition of Dominica from a colony to autonomy and then independence, we had major changes happening in Dominica, economically, politically, socially, and otherwise. And then we saw the introduction of English in the school system, and English as the official language and language of business. So it means that Creole, the Creole language began to be in a situation of decline. And in the face of that, in 1980, the movement, the Creole movement, particularly the academics and activists based in Jerek, which form part of the Université Antilles-Guyane system, they started this movement called Banzil Creole. Banzil Creole, which is the group of Creole islands, which group Dominica, Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, Haiti, Seychelles, Île Maurice, Réunion, Louisiana in the United States, even Cuba as well. So in that context, the Creole movement emerged in Dominica. We created the Comité Poétique Creole, and in the 80s in particular, we established Journée Creole, which eventually evolved to Journée Creole Internationale, and we established a number of other events, namely Journée Heritage Day, a number of pageants like Miss Wobguet, Team Matador. Some of these events were actually started by the cultural division and other private individuals, like in the case of Team Matador and the Madame Wobguet. And then we had eventually the World Creole Music Festival. So it was really like a roller coaster. The Creole just took off. So, depuis l'année 80, en Dominique, là nous former comité politique créole et puis mouvement créole, banzil créole et puis ces camarades là Gérec pour qu'on faire confiance et pour ça rentrer dans le combat pour défendre créole à niveau propre pays et à la région. Mouvement créole là roulé en Dominique et puis nous commençons à établir journée créole internationale. On a différents bagailles comme Miss Wop Duet, Madame Wop Duet, événements comme journée héritage. Et puis on a différents bagailles pour développer langue là, culture, manger, boire créole, musique créole en tout sens. So, ça c'est deux mots, quatre paroles, bref, à ce créole et langue créole là aussi venir établir en Dominique. That's a few words about how Creole found its way into Dominica as a language and as a culture. Merci en pile, merci en chai, merci en l'eau.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, before we go over to Mikel, I also want us to recognize the important role that Felix Henderson has played in promoting our Creole language through especially the work that he does in radio. So I think it's very important that we are sure to recognize him tonight for the important role that he has played with our culture. So now let's go over to Ms. Mikel Henderson, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her travels and how she finds the Creole she has experienced to be similar and different from ours. Mikel?
Thank you. Yes, I do want to acknowledge Felix. It seems as if we have quite a few Hendersons in the Creole,
yes.
Creole movement.
Mm-hmm.
Funny that you mentioned this, but I grew up in a community where Creole is widely spoken. Yet my grandmother forbade us speaking the language in her presence. For some reason, she felt that it was the language of the poor, the language of people who did not know how to speak English, quote unquote. And because our father was a teacher for some reason, she felt like that meant that we should not actually speak the language. But then when I got older, and she would tell us that in patois, papa le lakua, which means we obviously needed to understand the language first to obey those instructions. But as I grew older and I started to travel, I realized that people actually appreciated this language. This wasn't just a language that was, you know, something we spoke amongst ourselves or something we should be sort of shy about using. People actually embraced Creole culture, and in St. Lucia, for example, Creole is widely spoken. So I thought, wow. And then when I looked back, as Gregory mentioned, several of the historical contributions that Dominica has made, I realized that we had a lot to do with that. Dominica had a lot to do with this heavy Creole presence that exists in the world today. We have an International Creole Day that really started here. So it was something to be proud of. And obviously in my travels, I've noticed the variations, as Gordon put in, of Creole, but by and large, there's a general understanding. It's also interesting to note that even out in the Indian Ocean, or even as far as Seychelles and Mauritius, where they speak a variation of Creole, we can still understand a lot of what they're saying. They have different words, obviously, for certain things, but generally when they speak, I can actually understand what it is that they're saying. So it's actually been a thrill to me to be able to travel the world and to speak with people from different Creole cultures and be able to understand them. And it's always like a mutual excitement when we you know, you see somebody who actually speaks the language, and you know, you're like, oh wow, so you speak Creole, where are you from? And then we start talking about it, you know. And even just close by, the differences between Martinique and Guadeloupe are very observable. It's Creole, but if they speak, you can tell when somebody is from Martinique, and you can tell when that person is from Guadeloupe. And I learned this mostly from my aunt who lived in Guadeloupe, who always talked about pollo, which is what we call fig, banana. She call it pollo. And in Martinique, they call it tine. So it's two different words, completely not one related to the other, but relating to the exact same object. So you have these nuances in the language that exist in different countries, but it's always very pleasant, basically to sum up, to meet someone who has that sort of Creole influence, and that you can actually have a conversation and share sort of a shared culture of contribution from the Europeans and Africans and whatever native culture existed on those islands at the time. So yeah, that's the experience I've had, and I hope to be able to encourage more young people from Dominica, and probably if they know more how Dominica's Creole has influenced the spread of Creole and the appreciation of Creole worldwide, that they might find a source of pride in that, and continue to propagate that sense of pride in the language, and you know, passing it on to generations so that we can continue. Voila.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Mikel, for sharing your experiences with us. And before we go any further, I just want to remind our listeners, our viewers, that you are tuned into Se Nou. This is us, and we are here with Mr. Gregory Rabes, Ms. Mikel Henderson, and Mr. Gordon Henderson. And before we hand the floor over to Gordon, I can't wait for the lessons because I feel so disadvantaged at this point. I just want to reiterate what Mikel said in terms of being forbidden from speaking the language, which is what my mom was explaining to me when I decided to do this program. And it's certainly unfortunate, because the way I look at Creole is that it is our identity. And if we don't know who we are, we don't know what we come from, the people that we come from, then how do we know how to draw our strength? We draw our strength from those who came before us, and Creole is our identity. So I'm certainly happy that we're having this conversation, and I'm hoping that it's the beginning of a conversation where we can continue Creole language lessons online, and just seek to support the language. Because like Mikel said, and that's something we actually spoke about, I was astonished. I visited St. Lucia, and I was astonished to see the amount of St. Lucians who speak Creole right there in St. Castries, in the middle of the city. And I see no reason why this should not be the same with Dominica. So I'm getting ready to bite my tongue, to fall over myself, but I'm gonna try to learn some Creole tonight. So let's all join in as we welcome Gordon Henderson to the floor with the Creole lessons. Gordon, please take it easy on me.
Okay, it's going to be fun, and I need your participation. I will begin, and interrupt me at any time, because the two things that you call lessons that I posted on Facebook, it's really destined to Dominicans, particularly young, not young, Dominicans. You know, linguists have they have a big word called diglossia, and that I know that Gregory and Keck, they must be discussing diglossia all the time. People are ashamed to speak the language and that kind of thing. And people will tell you, I don't speak patois, because they don't want to say patois, because the R sound is too Creole, so they don't speak. But at the same time, the very people will tell you banana, an alternative, and you wonder what kind of native it is. So in fact, they speak English with a very correct Creole pronunciation. So I usually tell people, okay, let's do, Creole is a very easy language. Sometimes we hear our people, probably even educated ones, they will say has when they mean have. They hit the S. When Creole, you don't pronounce the S, so it makes it easy for everyone. So the first simple thing I said was the definite article in English is the one. In French, and I think it's good to have some comparison to demonstrate how easy Creole is. In French, they have three, le, la, le. In Creole, we have one, and this is where I need your help, because I use la. I spell it L-E. And the something particular about it, it goes after the noun. So you don't say the door. Now, a door is a very poor example because in Creole, there are two definite articles. The took, as Gregory said, the took la porte, which is the door in French, and we still put the la after la porte, so it's la porte la. But let's take a more reasonable one. Mama or papa, that's mother or father. So the mother would be mama la.
Mama la.
The father, papa la.
Papa la.
And every other noun, because we have, once I was watching a Creole dictionary from St. Lucia, and I noticed that there are many Creole words in St. Lucian Creole that are what those linguists call cognates, the same word in different languages, sometimes pronounced differently. And I noticed for the word farmer, it is farmer.
Wow.
So in Dominica, I noticed that we have different words, but we will get to it. But they have farmer. In Dominica, you will hear people say motokala. Because historically, as Gregory said, when Creole was founded, so to speak, on the slave plantation, there were no vehicles. So by the time the first car arrived, they call it motocar, so it's motokala. So we can go through Dominican Creole by practically using a lot of English words with a la behind. And that's our first step, okay? The second thing, to go quickly, I put was the present tense. English makes it difficult. The present tense in English has 4 forms. Okay? We don't have to go through it, or we don't even really have to know it. Creole has 1 form. Now, I would consider the only form as with ka. Like, for example, run is kui. So I run is mwaka kui. I am running is mwaka kui. I have run mwaka kui. I have been running mwaka kui. So I think that it is very, very simple. Now, an easy way to run through vocabulary, in my opinion, is to compare the different Creole variations, mostly of Martinique and Guadeloupe. Because in Dominica, I think people on the north use a number of words that are Guadeloupe style Creole, and people on the south have a tendency. Gregory spoke about bite and bagay, which is the word for thing. Now, if you have other interpretations, because sometimes, you know, the interpretations can be very different, jump in. In Dominica, people might use bita or bagay indiscriminately, whereas in Guadeloupe, it's bita and only bita, and Martinique is bagay and only bagay. We use both. There are words like banana. Mikel gave us pollo. There are people in Dominica who say pollo. I've heard people in Martinique and Guadeloupe talk about tine, but in a special context, mostly related to green bananas, cooking green bananas, not the ripe ones.
That's right, correct. It was the green, I was referring to the green cooked bananas.
Yeah. As tine. And in Dominica, a Creole, it has become another fruit. It's a fig. It's so much so that when we speak our Dominican English vernacular, we say fig. So the same person that will tell you I don't speak patois will tell you that they like ripe fig. So Creole is very, very implanted in our system. I made a list of a few words that we have to be careful how we use it. Now, that's not one of them, but it just came to my mind. When I listen to DBS, I hear a number of very, very new words. A while ago, I spoke of motoka. Garçon ou passa drive. The word drive, I think it's logical that it's in our Creole. Because in Martinique and Guadeloupe, they will say conduit, but I don't think that they inherited that from the Creole language of the slave plantation. Because at best, as Gregory stated, the Europeans came with horses. As a matter of fact, I heard the Kalinago run like hell when they saw a man on a horse because they thought it was one animal with two heads. But that's another story.
Right.
That's right, Gregory.
Gregory, is that true?
What's news to me?
Is that right?
I think I might
No,
have
I
known
read
something.
that in a history book. That the thing that scared well, I said the Kalinago, but whoever inhabited the islands, the thing that scared them the most was the European, and probably the reason why the Europeans conquered them because they were brave warriors were when they saw the men on horses, because they didn't know horses, and they thought that that was a kind of being with two heads and four legs, or probably six legs, and that's what scared them the most. So the word conduit, to stay in context, could not be there. So Martinique and Guadeloupe, they use conduit, but in our Creole, we use drive. Now on DBS, I hear a number of words, and there is one that amuses me, is the word for enjoy. So I would like to ask both Gregory and Mikel, what word do you use for enjoy? You know, this is my technique of getting vocabulary. What is the word for enjoy?
Well, my French, I think because also I speak French, I tend to use the word amusé.
Yes, that's what I was
But
thinking.
I think in Grand Bay, we don't use that frequently.
Right.
I've heard people say enjoy,
Yeah.
but that right? But to me in Grand Bay, it's like one cow do. Is like the thing. It's like make yourself happy. That's the we fake all do.
Okay. Okay. So there's no one word, so to speak.
Right.
What about Gregory? What's
Well, the
your
same
word
thing.
for
I
enjoy?
mean, my most thing is more amusé, grand amusé comme moi. Yes, I've heard the enjoué, but the enjoué conjures another sort of enjoyment.
And
It's
I
probably
will
not far off.
advise people.
It's probably not far off the mark.
Yeah, I would advise people among DBS audience in Dominica. You probably can say your injury, but it has connotations that are very particular in terms of enjoyment that you should avoid using in Martinique or Guadeloupe.
Oh my.
Is it well said?
Indeed, like the word fuck.
Right,
because
but
in Dominica we say fo, like it is you must do this, so it is necessary to do that.
Oh,
So
yes.
you say fo fair by fo chembe wed, but in Martinique they say fuck chembe wed.
Yeah.
When Martinicans come to Dominica and they go on the radio station and elsewhere,
and they say,
people misinterpret what's going on and say, but wait a while, what's going on here? But no. So that's another interesting example. It's taken from the French.
Yes, and it's very important. So we should warn Martinique. Nous n'est pas petit Martinique qui a coûté nous. À présent, là où aller Dominique, pas dit fuck nous aller boire, fuck nous aller manger, parce que mot là fuck, c'est un mot. Ouais. Et c'est un adjectif parfois, c'est un nom parfois, mais en tout cas, ça pas descend.
Oui.
Donc, pour il faut, Dominique, c'est faux, nous qu'a dit, faux, etc. Pas ni fuck. And to Dominicans going to Martinique and Guadeloupe, use amuser, use apprécier, use whatever you want, but this enjoué thing might put you in trouble. So this is a very, very good parallel, Gregory.
In Haiti, for example, I had an interesting experience. A woman was giving me a story, and she eventually said, "From la Calebugla." So I started to laugh and tell her, "Well, you cannot come to Dominica and say that. In Haiti, Calais also means bald-headed, right? In fact, the party of Sweet Mickey is the party of Sweet Mickey is called Calais.
Like me.
And, right, exactly.
Right.
Now, Calais in Haitian Creole also mean to give somebody a flogging, like with a strap or a belt. So she was talking about maybe her son was behaving bad, so she gave him a flogging with a strap or something. So from la Calebugla. But in Dominica, it conjures other kinds of things.
And in Martinique and Guadeloupe, Calais would mean to prop.
Okay.
And it also means to stall. For example, there was, this double meaning in Calypso. There was a very popular song in Guadeloupe, "Tu as calé la voiture, ma fille," which means when you're driving, if you're not good with stick, and I mean the gear stick, no Calypso in there. If you're not good in stick and the vehicle stalls, in Martinique and Guadeloupe Creole, you have calé the vehicle.
Calé voiture.
And it's not indecent at all.
Right.
But the same Kale we have in Dominica that has a very definite meaning that you would not bring to the dining table. So this,
You kale figla, ou kale figla, eh?
yeah, you can call it figla, but
Ou kale poisson, we say we ou kale poisson when you
caille, caille. No, the poisson is caille,
Kaye, sorry.
but the fig is
Kale
caille, but it's a metaphor.
Right.
When you call it the fig, it's a metaphor for the what you really have to call it.
That's because of the
Okay, so we're going good in vocabulary.
Yes, yes.
I want you to comment on the la.
Yeah.
Now, we have some variations of the la, but there is an internal logic to it. Actually, in Guadeloupe is probably the Creole speaking country where they use la constantly.
Right.
In Dominica, in Haiti, in Martinique, I'm not sure about St. Lucia. There is an internal logic here in the grammar here, with words that are ending in a let me get it right, in a consonant like any consonant, S.
Yeah.
Right? You tend to use la, right? Now, if a word ends in a semi-vowel like the nasal vowels like and or in a straight vowel like in papa, so we tend to say papa.
Papa, yes.
But in Dominica, because of the influence, we are sitting in the middle actually, a mitamatic epi Guadeloupe. Nous avons servi la epi a konuli. So we say papa la and papa, but generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, in terms of the rules of the grammar, with words ending in a vowel or semi-vowel, we tend to use a or sometimes we say mama.
Right.
Yes.
You understand?
Well, I was expecting that when I came up with this la, because there are many different and so on.
Yes.
So that makes it easier for someone who doesn't know Creole. The definite article could be just a sound. Mama, mama, mama la.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, so let's pick a topic and let's talk.
You want a topic?
As the person who speaks no Creole.
Topic la.
I tend to think that although Gordon mentioned that people in the north speak more like people from Guadeloupe, I found that to be true about Grand Bay, probably particularly because there are a lot of Grand Bayrians in Guadeloupe. It may be different in the rest of the South. I'm sure like in places like Soufriere and Point Michel, it is slightly different. They tend to sort of lean towards the Martinican pronunciation. But Grand Bay in particular is heavily influenced by Guadeloupe just because of the diaspora, the Dominican diaspora living there. Matter of fact, my mother was born in Guadeloupe. So it's we tend to drift towards that. Having said that, though, we still use more what Gregory suggested about the words ending in semi vowels. We use S instead of la a lot. Yeah. So
but
we mokale lawia is a very
yeah.
Now, Michael, I wanted to say, in terms of the influences in the North and South, when in Grand Bay, say, "Ban mo bagay mo," right?
Yeah.
"Ban mo bay mo." You know, that's your neck one way. Ban mo bay mo. But in Martinique, that mo came from Martinique, because in Martinique they say "man," M-A-N, man. So that is part of the influence. Another influence clearly is very evident in Point Michel and Kashaku, where they sort of say things like la manger, garçon, instead of garçon, manger, and l'argent. Now that is a Martinican thing as well. Manger, comment non, l'argent. Vamos l'argent, moi.
Give me my money.
They do say that in
Yeah, give me my money. And in Vieux cars, well, cars as well is the word for, well, we say kai.
Yeah, kai.
We say normally we say kai in Dominica. But in Guadeloupe they say cars.
Yes.
So here in Dominica there is a village called Vieux cars.
Old house.
It's not called Vieux kai. It's called Vieux cars.
I never thought of that.
But it is
we
spelled
use
in
cars.
French, huh? It is
but
spelled
we
in
use
French.
cars of kai. No problem. We use it as indiscriminately, as we say.
Right.
So what's the topic?
But do note that vieilles is spelled in French, correct French, vieilles.
Yes.
But we pronounce it vieilles.
Some people say vieilles.
No, well, they try to anglicize it and they don't realize.
Funkole.
I always wondered why there was
I even heard Funkole.
Well, that is part of the new Dominican DBS.
And I am hearing Glogomier instead of Glogomier.
Yeah.
No.
So Keck has a lot of work to do to get us back to some of the proper, well, I don't like proper in language, but some of the more authentic pronunciations, because it's Creole or it's something else. But based on what Mikel is saying, I find that the Guadeloupe Creole is slowly creeping into Dominica all over.
Very correct.
Yeah.
I mean, when I hear guys from Pottersville and Urban Roseau with the fellas in the Guada squad and all this them fellas in the you know what I'm saying, that they operating underground. They're operating in the underground system in Guada through the backbone, all that story. When you hear them speak Creole, that's what I can do it for you.
Yeah.
You understand? C'est Creole Guada, c'est Bouga Kabale.
Yeah, and the modern Guadeloupe Creole, huh?
Exactly.
Yes. I heard creeping into the Creole. Now I have a question. Would you say Livier Siwik or Rivière Siwik? Which one is the actual name of the village?
Okay, interestingly, because Rivière Pilote in Martinique is like French, is Rivière Pilote. But I spoke to some older folk in Martinique, and back in the days they call that place Livière Pilote. You understand? Right now it's Rivière Pilote, but it was back in old Martinique and Creole. Back in the days it was Livière Pilote. In the Kalinago territory, for example, we have Livière Quibiche. British River. We don't say Rivière Quibiche. We say Livière Maho for Maho River. We say Livière Golette for Golette River. All these are in the Kalinago territory. But in Livière Siwik now, well, Rivière Siwik, it appears that it has become it's a particular situation. It reminds me of Bernawaville.
Yes, Bernawaville.
Because we say Wavin cock, Wavin banan, Wavin this and Wavin that. But in Dominica we also have Bernawavin. So I think these are just exceptions rather than the rule.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would say that we find that in all modern languages. If you take in America, there's a place that Americans will tell you it's Connecticut. but it is not spelled Connecticut. And people who don't know will pronounce it Connecticut. I remember Canadians, we had Ray Schiff, a Canadian, that Gregory and myself lived under the same roof with him. He used to tell us it's Newfoundland. He's Canadian, that's their place, it's not Newfoundland. So, you know?
You have Newfie jokes. Jokes about Newfoundland. They were the butt of Canadian jokes, you know, just like people in Saint-Ouen or in Guadeloupe, Saint-Ouen, Saint-Ouen, Saint-Ouen are the butt of Guadeloupean jokes. So in Newfoundland are the butt of Canadian jokes. So I refer to this as Newfie jokes.
Okay, well, you see, so we have the similar cases that it is spelled Rivière, just like Viecas, but we pronounce it differently. We say it's Viecas and Rivière.
Yes, because I have a friend from Rivière Civic who says Rivière Civic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's probably on the map as Rivière Civic.
No, we have Pont-Cassé. Pont-Cassé is another weird one, you know.
It's a broken bridge.
It's spelled, it's spelled P-O-N-D, Pond Cassé, but it's actually Pont, P-O-N-T, broken bridge.
Yeah.
That's right. Pont-Cassé.
That is why, but that might be a subject of another program. Personally, I am not for the written Creole, and I have a whole thesis why in defense. And you see things like Pont Cassé, the man heard Pont, and he couldn't spell, and he wrote Pond. But that's something else. I know we haven't got a lot of time. I think we're supposed to hang around for an hour.
Yes, 7.
I had a few other words that could create discussion and help vocabulary for new learners. The word for about, what do you use for the word about? To speak about something or someone in Dominican Creole. What is about? Right. Cont, yeah. Does anybody have, well, we have to be very careful when we go to Martinique, Guadeloupe, probably even St. Lucia. Cont means against.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Cont means against in these places. And so they use a kind of deformation of the French de, and they say D-I. They say D. On peut parler D.
Or de.
Or de. You know, they kind of give it their pronunciation, but somehow we say Cont. So we have to be careful. Cont is about
in Dominica,
but it
in
is
Dominica,
but it's against most other places. Now, the word for beauty in Dominican Creole. Now, the problem with Greg, well, not the problem, the good thing about Gregory and Michael is they are exposed, just like me, to the French language and different forms of Creole. So sometimes they might forget our Dominican beauty. What is the Creole word for beauty in Dominican Creole?
I've heard belte. Belte, I've heard.
Belle is beautiful.
Yes. What I heard
Belle is beautiful. Beautiful is belle.
Or have you
but
heard
beauty.
I've heard that word belte several times.
But is it, I would like to know, because the first time I heard belte was in a song from Ophelia.
Okay. Mm.
And I had never heard it before. So I often wonder if Ophelia made it up like whoever made Injui.
Possibly.
No, but Belte exists. Belte exists.
Belte exists, huh?
Belte bagay la. Belte moun la.
Right.
Okay, so our beauty is Belte.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me fam la
Okay.
belle.
Yeah, what beautiful is Belle.
Yeah.
Okay, so but
Beauty
we
will
must
be
be careful
Belte.
now. Belte doesn't exist.
Somebody have music on.
Dominic Induru Kosiwo.
That's the song playing right now.
Belte doesn't exist in, at least in Martinique and Guadeloupe. It's Bote.
Interesting. Interesting. Because there's a team in Dominica that says, si vous voulez Belte, whatever, madame la, faut lever J point.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No.
That's Creole language, boy.
That's a team, you know.
Belte.
Si vous voulez Belte, femme la, faut lever J point.
Belte. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that has to do with corn. I think that has to do with the corn, you know. I'll cross check it. The corn, because you know it has this. But I'll cross check it.
But in any case, we have heard Belte in Dominica, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
But if we want to say beauty in Martinique or Guadeloupe, or even in the Indian Ocean, it's the French word, it's beauté.
Beauté.
So for those who speak French, belle and beau happen to be beautiful, but in that language, they have masculine and feminine. So they chose beauté in Creole for anything, everything. Creole is simple.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot to practice. So I guess as we get ready to wind down, I want to say thank you for you guys being here. And I'm hoping that we can do this again next week, next Saturday maybe, have a topic and practice some of what we learned today.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, it was a pleasure. It's fun.
But pour moi, je parler créole. Moi, sorti Guabe, so moun Guabe. Nous ka servi so en Guabe, nous ka parler, nous ka di so.
Oui, mais que try faire ça.
Oui, but moi, aime parler créole. Puis pour moi, créole, c'est une langue qui belle, c'est une langue qui. Ou ça dit ça ou les, et puis ou ka senti l'esprit bagay la ou di. Because I tried to do, I'll tell you one, give you an example. I tried to write this Creole thing. That's what I was feeling at the time, and I wrote it in Creole. And like Gordon says, he doesn't really like the writing section of it, but I did my best to sort of write it in as Creole fashion as I thought I could. And then when I did an English translation, it did not have the same esprit. You know, message came across, but it didn't have the same passion. Yes. So for me, using Creole is always a more passionate way of expressing yourself. I feel like that is such a...
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Well, to conclude in terms, I guess we will talk about the writing probably in another program. But suffice it to say that is a phonetics-based system. And the little children write Creole without a problem. The people who have problems writing the Creole are the intellectuals. Yes. They have a problem with that because they're looking at it from an English. You know, they have English lenses, but to write Creole, you gotta take out these English lenses and put a Creole lens. So because we write things like parley, like P-A-L-A-Y, and we say tell the same person to say Y-I-I. They will put Y-A-Y-A-Y-A-Y. Correctly spell it, but in another way, the same song. So the ways, but I should point out that the written Creole is actually getting more popular in Dominica because of the social media and, you know, things like posters, independence celebrations. People need to basically write the Creole. And I think that is also driving the need to have a standard way of writing it. So, you know, just like in the Arabic countries, everybody speaks a different, writes a different Arabic, but they do have a pan-Arabic medium that everybody understands in terms of the writing system. Similarly, in the Creole, that is why it's important for us to have a pan-Creole system that
Exactly.
everybody can relate to. I can read Seychelles Creole or Haitian Creole without difficulty. So that is my take on that. But merci en pile. It's a pleasure. We had fun, and until next week.
Yes, until next week, same time, same place. We can do it again.
Let me just mention,
Yes.
Gregory, what you said is very important, that we're going more into writing Creole. I think the Haitian influence in Dominica has a lot to do with that as well, because we have a lot of Haitians and now that are being written in Creole so that the Haitian population can actually understand, you know, when
Great.
Correct.
Yes. Gordon?
Sounds good.
Sorry, moderator, I apologize.
No problem, no problem. So again, thank you for being here. And again, this was Se Nou, this is us. And we will continue our discussion next Saturday at 6 p.m. right here on Facebook Live on Push Past 10. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will see you soon.
All right, good night. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, tout le monde.
Okay, let's see. All right, you guys are here?
Yeah.
Oh, that was excellent. How was it?
It was fun. It was very fun.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Enjoyable.
Yes. So are you guys interested in doing next Saturday?
What is the
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a lot of incomplete things to say.
Yeah, because even with bonsoir, I was gonna say bonsoir.
Yes, there's different versions of that as well.
Yeah. So I was like, I was about to say bonsoir, but it's bonsoir.
That's right.
Yes,
Bonsoir makes it more, how should I put it? I'm hesitating a lot when I say those kinds of things. For example, if I were to write a song in Creole, I want that song to be understood and I want people to buy it in the largest Creole speaking audience. So there's a common denominator in all the Creoles is French.
Right.
So I might prefer to say bonsoir to be certain to be understood by the largest number, even if bonsoir, you know what I mean?
Right.
So sometimes what the linguists call register, you have to apply some register sometimes, depending on where and who you're addressing.
Yeah, and I'm already getting messages on my phone that people enjoyed the show.
That's
So I think we're doing something important, especially during Independence. And Gordon said this is the month of Creole. They're celebrating Creole month this month.
Well, Keck started it, you know.
But interestingly, Gordon mentioning that I write as well, and I take that approach Gordon has as well. And sometimes it also has to do how it sounds. For example, I have a song that I recall, Punuel Lassa. But I deliberately didn't say Punuel Sala because to me, Noel Lassa songing better. It's more songing Punuel Lassa. You know, it goes better for me than if I have to say Punuel Sala.
Right.
Yeah.
But Punuel Lassa,
but you're right, because there's a good example in English.
I think Gregory's stuck.
Yeah, he's stuck.
He's frozen.
Yes, he is.
Melody. Good.
He's stuck.
Gregory. Gregory?
He'll come back.
Because in English, there's a famous example of what Gregory did in Creole with a Cat Stevens song titled Lady Lay. Mikel, you know a lot of songs. Lay, lady, lay across my big brass bed. And in English lesson, they will tell you, he didn't say lie, lady, lie.
Right.
Which is correct, because lay, lady, lay would make a hen.
Right.
Most Americans,
Yes,
most Americans
there was a connection.
believe
Yes, okay, you're back.
lay means lie and lie means lay and so on.
Right, right.
But
And
he
that
said
brings
he
me,
need,
and that brings me to this point, because I was thinking next week, I was thinking we can talk about Creole in music, the influences on our music. So I was thinking, Gregory, you can do like the historical beats and the historical Creole part of it.
he wrote part of a book that was published by what university again? Chicago.
Oh, okay.
But I can see Gregory, but is that his picture? Is
No,
this
it's
Gregory?
him, but he's frozen again.
Oh,
Yeah,
but in
but
any
I'll
case,
send an email as well.
yeah. Well, he co-authored a book that was published by the University of Chicago on, it's on world music and whatever, but Creole is in it. So he's very qualified. You're back, Gregory?
We were just talking about you.
Can you
back?
hear us?
Yeah. And the sound is wobbly on my end.
Oh, we can see you well. But can you hear
Talking
us?
about a book that you co-authored on music.
With Jocelyn Grimbaud.
I'm not sure you can hear us.
As a matter of fact, I have a copy of that book here.
Interesting.
So I'll send it in email so he can get the gist of what we were saying. Because I was thinking the same thing. He said that you guys are all musicians, so we can talk about the impact of Creole, you know, and maybe get me to speak a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually think Felix is having a book launch.
Oh, is he?
Saturday.
On Saturday? Ooh.
Yeah, but it's an autobiography.
Yes. Yes, no, but as you mentioned the timing, I'm thinking of the timing.
No, what time? Do you know what time he's doing it?
Not yet, but I'm not sure yet. But it's
when you find out, can you let me know?
Yes.
Yes, please. So because I mean, if we can change the time,
yeah,
that would be fine with me as well. And before I forget, Mikel, I sent you a friend request on Facebook. So
I think I accepted.
It said DA Rose, because
yes,
I want to be able to tag all of us when I am on the Facebook Live video.
I have so many.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was saying I have to tell you because I'm sure you have like a ton of them.
Tons, like thousands of people. I'm way above the limit. So in request, so I literally have to go. I'll send one to you. Because
okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, so that's it for me. So thank you again, everyone.
Okay.
And I guess we can, once Mikel tells me the time for Felix book launch, we can figure out what time we can do it next Saturday, God willing.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, cool. So thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Okay, yes, I'm responding now.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
bye.
Okay, bye.